Hey guys, I'm Pablo, and I am a UX designer. 8 months ago, I started my coding journey and instantly fell in love. Now, I want to help anyone wanting to break into programming overcome any obstacle by sharing all of my experiences in the field. This is Devotion, a podcast dedicated to motivate you on your coding journey. We will be talking ways to keep you inspired, motivated, and encouraged, all while talking industry news, products, UX, and everything in between. Remember, it all starts with devotion. Hey. How are you guys doing today? I hope y'all are having a wonderful day, a wonderful week, or a wonderful month. I know that I am grateful because I just found out it's fall. And I am so grateful for that because now I can pop on a hoodie and not get judged for it, which makes me really, really happy. I do have some, stuff to disclose. And number one is English is my second language. So you might hear mistakes. That's fine. I don't want to hear it. And let's move on. Number two, everything I say in this podcast, please take it with a grain of salt. These are just my thoughts. This is what I think. This is my experience. This is just kind of the stuff I've went through, how I think about it, and stuff like that. So again, take it with a grain of salt, and let's keep moving forward. It's gonna be all nice and happy over here on this side. What I want to talk about today is actually something super important, something that I feel a lot of professionals go through, at least colleagues that I've worked with and have worked with, and or friends or family, stuff like that. And that is the imposter syndrome. Something super dangerous because I think that it's so, I don't want to say underrated, right? But I think a lot of people go through it and really not speak up because they think they might get judged for it. But first things first, let's start by defining what imposter syndrome is for those of you who don't know what it is. And Google actually defines it as, imposter syndrome, also known as the imposter phenomenon, imposterism, fraud syndrome, or the imposter experience. That one sounds a little cool. But anyways, it is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments or talents and has persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Fraud. That's a big word. Look, I didn't know for a while. I'll get into it here in a second, but for a while I didn't know what imposter syndrome was, and I knew I was suffering from something. I just didn't know what it was. But I'll get into that story here in a second. Let's answer this question. Who suffers from it? It's actually the number one asked question about this stuff on Google. 70% of people, according to Inc., experience the imposter syndrome at some point in their career, which is insane, right? Because if you think about it, 7 out of 10 people suffer from it. 7 out of 10. Think how many people are in your department, right? Out of every 10, 7 of those have at some point have gone through it or are going through it, which is an insane statistic for me, right? Also, I think the number is so high because there's a stigma, you don't want to be that person that talks about how you don't feel adequate to hold a job title you hold. You know what I'm saying? I feel like people don't talk about it because I feel like they'll think that other people will think they're weak, or I feel like, they'll think they're weak, or people might get the wrong idea or something. To something to that effect, but I think that's why the number is so high. I think so many people suffer from it because no one really talks about it. Everyone's ashamed to talk about it, and I'm not. I'm an open book. I talk about that stuff all the time. I suffer from it, have suffered from it, still suffer from it, and even though I know what it is, so just knowing what it is and what the symptoms are doesn't help you just get rid of it, right? Sometimes you just feel inadequate, and that's just what it is. But here are 4 signs you suffer from imposter syndrome, right? When you don't think you do, or when you have no idea what it is, or just maybe there's something you feel inside and haven't really pinned it down. So I'm going to go through these 5 or 4 signs. I think they're 5. I have 5 written down. that you might be suffering from imposter syndrome, right? So here they are, really fast talking points. Today's podcast is going to be pretty quick. But anyways, here they are. Number one is you feel like a fraud. That's the main one, I think. If you feel like a fraud in your job, chances are you suffer from imposter syndrome. Number two, it's difficult to accept praise. That's a big one for me too. When someone says I did a good job or stuff like that, I get really shy, I get really pink, I get really awkward. That's probably the best one. And it's just, I don't believe it. So that's another sign, right? I know that's something I've gone through personally, so that's why I'm vouching for it. Number three, you overwork yourself. That's another one I suffer from. Number four, you devalue your worth. Number five, you undermine your experience or expertise. I have fallen prey to every single one of these. Actually, here's a story. When I was working at my last job, I actually, for like a year and a half, carried that burden of feeling inadequate, feeling like I wasn't good enough, feeling like, one day someone's going to wake up, come to work, and like just go to my cubicle, point at me and go like, you are not good enough. You don't deserve this job. Blah, blah. That's what I felt like. Truth of the matter is that was far from the truth. I worked my ass off to be in the position I was, and I earned my spot there, right? But I couldn't shake that feeling. So after about a year and a half of carrying it, right, I went to my director, and me and him developed a great bond, developed a great friendship, and I talked to him about a lot of my personal stuff, and he was very understanding. He was such a great director, great leader, and to this day is actually my friend. But I told him, hey man, like I feel like I'm not good enough to be here. I feel like I'm not, director material. I feel like I can't lead people, or I feel like I felt all this stuff, which wasn't true because I was doing a hell of a job and I was getting things done, and I was, kicking ass and taking names, but I couldn't shake this feeling off, and I just didn't know what it was. I didn't know if anyone else could relate. I didn't know if anyone else was talking about it, and just the sheer fact of me talking about it made me feel, or thinking about talking about it made me a little insecure. So I approached my director and went to his office, and I was asking him like, hey man, like, have you ever gone through, and then just started pouring myself out. I was like, yeah, I just don't feel adequate, man. Like, I feel like one day everyone's just gonna realize I'm a fraud and blah, 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 blah. And I just kept going for like about, 40 minutes, right? It was just venting session time. And he looked at me, and I'll never forget. He was like, I have two things to tell you. Number one, you deserve to be here. That's why you got hired. Number two, you have imposter syndrome, man, And sure enough, I was like, imposter syndrome, what is that? It sounds like something you just made up. We went, started going through Google, he started sending me articles and stuff like that. And sure enough, every single thing in those articles just seemed like they were taking pages from my life and just telling me what it was. And, I felt a breath of fresh air because I have, at that point, finally identified what my problem was. But I also felt like it was a start of something else, because now, okay, I know what the issue is. Now, how do you solve it? But that was my experience on figuring out what imposter syndrome was and carrying those feelings for a very long time. Even now that I know what it is, it doesn't like shield me from it, because I still feel it, right? There was a point in time towards the tail end of that job that I didn't feel it anymore, but it was because I owned my job. I felt very comfortable. I hit every deliverable. I did everything I was supposed to do, and I was very confident in what I was doing. It wasn't, but I also, this goes into a whole other issue of how I felt like I was having the same day over and over. So I wanted to change jobs to challenge myself again, because I hate being stagnant. I love to learn. So I switched into learning how to into development and front end development, coding, programming stuff. And once again, of course, it hit me like a ton of bricks, right? Because when you start a new career, or at least jump to a different vertical, you have this sense of hey, I'm not good enough as the other people that have been doing it for a very long time and know that they're here, right? And that's what I felt like. I felt like I still carry it till this day, right? Because it's only been a year and 2 months since I started like making websites and stuff like that, and getting that. Well, 6 to 8 months of actual programming on and off, and yeah, it's been a journey because I know the feeling, I carry it, but I just can't shake it off. So how do you manage it? How do you overcome it? Do you overcome it? How do you live with it? Truth of the matter is, I don't know. I still carry it, right? This is not a podcast that always has answers. I will try my best to always provide answers and or solutions and or points of view or perspective on different issues that I bring up, whatever they may be. But in this case, I don't know. There's things that have helped me like deal with, stability, mental stability, and or some kind of confidence or something to override the feelings. And they're not sponsors or anything, obviously, right? But like Headspace is an app that actually helps me a lot. Every time I feel this sense of imposterism, right, or imposter syndrome or whatever, I get on my Headspace app and just take a second to kind of ground myself, take a second to appreciate everything I know and everything I've done and everything I do and how far I've gotten in my family. And when you start thinking of bigger picture stuff like that, it kind of wipes those small things away and it kind of grounds you again, right? It's those anchor thoughts that kind of bring it back. It brings me back to my inner, to my peace, it brings me back to my focus, and it kind of helps me deal with the imposter syndrome a little bit more. Another one is for me is working out, specifically bike rides and or running. I love bike rides and running. As a matter of fact, I just busted my ass a couple days ago. Little kid got in the way in the bike trail, and I was going like 30 miles an hour, and bam, just flew like Superman out of my bike, landed on the concrete, rolled into the grass, the whole thing, and my body hurts. And today I actually had my first run after that accident, and I felt great. I did about a few miles, and pretty sore still because but again, doing that, getting out there really helps me kind of deal with imposter syndrome, really helps me ground myself a little bit more. It really helps me just kind of keep moving forward and, moving past the thoughts. I would love to know how you guys deal with it. If you have, successfully managed it at some point, or have a technique that kind of helps you override the feelings of imposter syndrome, I would love to know. So if you guys actually would hit me up on social media, Instagram, it's Programming Pablo, Twitter, it's Design with Pablo. Just tell me how you guys deal with this stuff, right? Because I love to know how, maybe I can find a better way to deal with it. But so far, this is what has worked for me. This is what the internet says, though. So every time you are kind of falling prey to this, make a list of 10 things that show you are just as qualified as anyone else. I can see how that would help, right? Because if you start listing things out of, hey, this is how I'm qualified for the job I have, it might make you kind of, it's like a pat on the back for you. So I can see how that works. Here's another one. Psych yourself up. Like, say I'm awesome, say I got this, I'm qualified for this job, et cetera, right? I think pumping yourself up can be a great thing. Just don't let it get to your head, because you don't want the inverse effect of this either, where, you are completely like, maybe you're just not quite there yet, but, anyways, that's a whole different issue. But I can see how that one will work. Own your accomplishments. Don't brush your success off to chance. I love that. Own your accomplishments. If you got a promotion, hey, they don't give anyone a promotion, pat yourself on the back for it. That might actually shake off some of the imposter syndrome off. And this one's actually really important. The last one is visualize success, almost like psyching yourself up. I can see that. Visualize yourself be successful. Visualize yourself getting that promotion. Visualize yourself owning that job. Visualize yourself owning that Tesla. Hopefully my wife is listening to this so she can hear that, because I will get one. That was just a plug for my wife. But anyways, visualize success. Be that person, right? Be the person you see yourself being. But anyways, that kind of brings this podcast to a close. I hope you guys have a great week. Again, if you have any cool new ways of how you handle imposter syndrome or just want to talk about it, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, my Instagram is the shameless plug. My Instagram is Programming Pablo. My Twitter is Design with Pablo. Remember, keep at it. Remember who you are. You are not an imposter. You are meant to be right where you are meant to be. And remember, it all starts with devotion.